Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Up the Guts podcast. We've got a very special episode this week, but before I introduced our guests, I'm joined by your host, Tricky, my co-host, Connor, and Holty. How are we, lads?
Good. Very excited for today.
Yeah, very, very.
Now, as I mentioned, it's a very special episode. We are fortunate enough to be joined by a former AFL player. He played 378 games for Essendon, kicking 575 goals. He's a two-time Premiership player, three-time All-Australian, four-time Essendon Best and Fairest, a Norm Smith medalist, and a part of the AFL Hall of Fame. I'd like to welcome Simon Madden to the podcast.
Keep going. That's good. Keep going. Thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me along. It's good to talk my favourite subject, me. It's fantastic.
You also forgot he was a leading goal kicker.
Goal kicker, yes, too.
Yeah. Well, look, I was for a while, and then the fellow by the name of Matthew Lloyd.
The old Velvet sledgehammer.
Yes.
And he played full forward, so I suppose a full forward should have the most goals. That's fair enough. I think that's probably right.
He's my favourite Essendon player as an Essendon supporter, but you're not far behind.
Good man.
Yeah, awesome.
Now, take us through growing up in your early years. Obviously, you had a younger brother, Justin, as well. What was it like in the Madden household?
Well, look, we actually, there's three of us. There was an older brother, Paul, who actually
that's right, yeah.
He played under 19s and seconds in the early 70s for Essendon. Was a very good footballer, as everybody said, probably the best of us. But he had a rock and roll band, and that was more important to him in the 70s. So it was a good little house, working class. Airport West was the suburb. Very, very creatively named Airport West, which was west of the Essendon Airport. Just fantastic creativity with that name. And we grew up, and our dad passed away when my older brother was 14 and a half, I was 13, and Justin, my younger brother, was 10. Ex-serviceman, probably post-traumatic stress disorder, a bit of that, but he had a heart attack in the backyard mowing the lawn. He smoked 2 packets of Viscount, Turf, Craven 8, real cigarettes, no pretend cigarettes, real cigarettes, and he died in our backyard mowing the lawn. So I'm a little bit older than he was when he died, so I take all precautions. Yeah. I don't smoke and I don't mow lawns, just to make sure. You never know what.
Fair enough.
Did you guys?
And the two things that were probably the sports in our street. We had a lot of kids in our street. You're out in the street playing cricket or kicking the football. Basketball came along a little bit. We were all, the three of us, all right at that as well. But football, of course, being the Australian sport, was the one we chased and loved. And I was terrible in grade 3 and 4. And by about grade 5, we're starting to get the idea. All my friends loved playing it, so I joined in with them. And then started to get the hang of it. By about under 13s, I was getting better, and by under 15s, I was good. And then by under 17s, Essendon started to look to me, and they chased my older brother back again, who'd played in 73 in the under 19 grand final, which they got beaten. He broke his face, unfortunately, with an elbow, was umming and ahhing. Des Tubman, the coach, then came around to talk him back into playing, and then asked me along to training at 15 and 10 months. He said, come to training after Christmas. What do you think? What do you think of 15 and 10 months, 15 and 10 month year old player goes, oh yeah, I'll be in that. And so I went up to Essendon in the start of 1974, a long time ago, before you gentlemen were born.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, well, just going back to what you just said there, when you were back in 15, 10 months looking at being recruited to Essendon, how did that all go through? It
was very simple back then. There was no draft. All you do, it had zones. So every club had zones in Victoria, a city zone, a country zone, or a couple of city zones, a country zone, and then you fought over the players in the other states. So I was in the Essendon area, so I was automatic. We had the Essendon area, the Ringwood area, sort of west of Essendon, and then a lot of the Wimmera country Victoria, and then, as I said, you fought over, had a whole lot of forms and procedures to get players from interstate, which clubs would fight over and argue and transfer and trade. And so, but it was very easy. They just said, I always lived in the Essendon area and just come up to training. I actually got picked up by a fella, a single old bloke who gave me lollies in the car. That's not a real.
What was it like as a 15, 16-year-old walking into such a predominant big AFL club? It's scary as anything.
It was just fantastic. My father had been a mad Geelong supporter, and I sort of grew up following Geelong for a little while until I realised in a school of 650 kids in Airport West, I was the only kid in a Geelong jumper. So
Good choice of club, Simon.
Alton's an
And
out.
so Gary Foles, who played 300 games, he was at St Bernard's where I went. He'd played under 19s the year before. So I'd go along and watch him. Older brother played under 19. So you started to get an understanding of it. I remember sneaking in 73 into the grand final because I had the under 19s, the seconds, and then the first back then in the VFL on the one day. So I just walked in with a brother and held someone's bag and looked like a player and walked in and got in the MCG for free and stayed there for the whole day. I know you could do that now, of course, but the security was a little bit lax back then. So I was just sort of getting a taste of what it was like to mix with those people. And then you walk into the big club. The first training session was down at the showgrounds in Ascot Vale, and I didn't know what had hit me because I didn't really have to train. We were, a suburban footy club. I was the biggest. We were always struggling just to get the numbers. So you didn't have to train, always get picked. And then went to Essendon and I went, you've got to start training now. And I went, oh my God, this is hard. This is not just you actually got to do stuff,
Yes. So
it was really good.
So growing up, what kind of players were you like idolized as when you first walked into the club as well?
And then like I was going to say, were you always a ruckman as a junior as well?
Yeah, I was always one of the tallest. So I remember turning up at St Bernard's Junior School, and I wasn't the tallest kid at the school. In year 7, I was the second tallest. So I made sure I worked out I'd outgrow that bloke in 3 years, which I did. Always the tallest, and like back then, there weren't big names, but Alan Noonan was a great goal kicker. Jeff Blethen had kicked 100 goals, had gone to West Australia and come back. There was just Lauren Maloney would know as a player who used to pick me up and take me to the games with him. So it was just Peter Daniels. I always remember Peter Daniels. I remember watching him when I was a kid, so about 13 or 14, and he went for a huge mark in the goal square at Windy Hill. And just as he got to the ball, he realised he was very close to the goals and ducked his head out of the way and let it sail through for a goal. And I can remember just saying, wow, isn't that a great team play? I would have taken the mark and waved it at the crowd. But,
I don't move from the goal square, Simon, so that's
right.
So,
he ducked out of the way and let it go through. I remember, wow, that's it'd be great to play with someone like that. And I ended up playing with him for a season or two. So, there was Neville Fields. It was a great name in Essendon. In the time I entered into the team, it wasn't very successful. The last premiership had been 65. The last grand final at 68. This was in 74. And we didn't really look like being a good side. I mean, I didn't know. I just jumped in with everybody else. But you look back and you see what the other teams were doing, the good teams at that stage, and we were a long way from it.
Now, do you remember your first game?
I do remember my first.
Little chuckle there.
Because it was
testing.
No, it's a long, long time ago, but you do remember your first game. I was at school. I got my picture in the paper, so on the back of the Herald Sun and the Age, and oh wow, this 6-year-old kid's going to play for Essendon, so he got a bit of publicity. I wondered.
Oh, they were right then.
To wandered down Moorabbin and sat on the bench for most of the three quarters, and I thought this is going to be a bit of a worry. Maybe I might not even get on. This is going to be real embarrassing if I sit on the bench the whole game and not get on.
Oh, sometimes Tricky sees that. On the bench.
It's happened before. It's happened to other players, and I just so late in the sort of the pattern of the game had been set. They kicked the goal, we didn't. They kicked the goal, we didn't. It was sort of the way the game was going. A fellow who was involved, I played with him, was involved in Essendon Premiership assistant coach Robert Shaw, a great football person. He was 17 and he was on the forward pocket, so they full forward pocket, so they took him off and put the 16-year-old on. I can remember back then you had the dressing gown, so the message came down to the bench via the telephone. Oh, you're on. You're getting your dressing gown off, and the full message comes through. You're on. You're at full forward. You're on Cowboy Neil. Now, Cowboy Neil back then was like the Stanley footy cards. It sort of took 2 Simon Maddens to get 1 Cowboy Neil, right? He's the biggest, baddest fullback. And I almost put me dressing him back on and said, no, I don't want to go on. But I went on there. I went on about 20-minute mark into the third quarter, and it was great. It was really good for he was fullback. He didn't even acknowledge my existence. I just wandered up there. He was standing with his in the goal square because it all was down the other end. I did very well for the last 10 minutes of the third quarter. I kept him kickless. It was really, really good. It was fantastic. I was kickless too, but at least we.
That's all right. Equaled each other out.
We're on even par.
That's good.
Des Tudden was the coach who was really strong coach. Got me at quarter time and said, "You Madden, you got to kick a goal." I go, "Oh, anyway." So we go to the last quarter. They kick a goal. We don't. They kick a goal. Then I remember saying, gee, this is even worse. Not that if it hadn't have got on, I could have blamed the coach. But at the moment, I haven't got a kick. I haven't got a possession. I'm going to go through the whole game without a possession. Anyway, luckily they moved me up the half-forward flank. The ball came in. Took a mark. You feel like stopping, so waving to everybody. Look, I've got the ball. I've got the ball. But of course, your play goes on, and the captain coach, Des Tubman, calls for the ball. So I give out a handball. Now think about this. First possession is a handball, team player. Second, to the captain coach of the side. I reckon that's worth about 2 games just in that one possession, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then still hadn't got a kick. And late in the game, finally, I floated down to full forward. The ball came in. I took a mark in the goal square. I looked like I'm going to kick a goal. That player, Peter Daniels, came up to me. I won't use the words I said at the day, but he said, look, settle down, quiet down. And I think I said something like, get out of the effing way. I want to kick an effing goal, something like that. And he did, and I did, and that was fantastic. So think about this. And they kicked a goal. We did. The game was finished. We lost, but it was great. I played my first league game. I kicked the goal. So my first kick was a goal, one of those plays. My first possession was a handball with captain coach. I'm a league player. Fantastic. Talked about football for the whole week. And then the next week, back down on the Herald Sun, had the teams on the back page. So I looked on the back page. We're all talking footy, and I went through the side, and my name wasn't there. And I thought, maybe that's a mistake. And I went back about 4 pages into the reserves, and in a little corner reserves, there's Simon Madden back in the reserves. So I went, So you went like that. You went like that in 2 weeks. So I saw the ups and downs of league footy very quickly, very quickly.
Now, you didn't take long to make an impact as well. In your 4th game against North Melbourne, you managed to kick a bag of 6. Can you take us through that game?
Wow, very, very, very good research. Very good. I was going to tell you about it. If you brought it up, that's fantastic. Thank you. No, look, I remember that. It was one of those ones. The first ruck for us was Graham Moss, who ended up winning 3 best and first and a Brownlow medal. So I spent a lot of time in the forward line, and I learned from him, if you're the first ruck, you give the second ruck about 5 minutes. That's all you give them, So I get about 5 minutes a game, and I'm playing against really huge blokes, and I'm a skinny little runt, or skinny 2 yards of pump water, I was described once, and so I spent a lot on the forward line. It all went well, and I got 6 goals. And it's funny, but I remember out of that game, we were very close, and we were in front, and I was in the ruck late in the game, and I was on the halfback flank, and I turned. Now you look as you'd never do it, but 4th game it was, you said. Turned inside, went for a short kick, got intercepted by a North Melbourne player, ran down the ground, kicked a goal, they won. And so even though the 6 goals are very memorable, I can't remember them. I remember that going, oh my God, I stuffed this game up. So yeah, you sort of learn the harshness of the reality of league football straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, also, we have here that in 1984 was your first premiership. Can you take us through that, your first premiership, and what was that team like?
Oh, look, 84 was fantastic. Hawthorn, and look, I say to the Hawthorn people, think about this is Hawthorn's presence in grand finals, right? So think about this. 83 they win, 84 they lose to us, 85 they lose to us, 86 they win, 87 they lose, 88 they win, 89 they win, 90 they miss out, 91 they win. That's fantastic. When we beat them twice. So they must have been pretty good. So we must have been pretty good to beat them. So in 83, they'd beaten us then by a record score. So Kevin Sheedy had come in 81 and really tried to work on as professional as the game could be. He tried to make it back then as a beat. So we all got our own football. He said to us that people say you're a skillful side, you're not. Skills aren't good enough. So we had to take this football home and keep it with us and bring it to training. If we didn't bring it to training, we'd fine. So we were really working, and he was really good at. He was really good at trying to get players from everywhere. Got players from everywhere. But 83 got beaten by a record score, and you think, geez, it took us ages to get there, 10 years to get the one. And luckily it's been beaten twice since then. So, they don't talk about our record score because there's 2 more. It's much better. I should check. Maybe the Swans last year made it 3. I better check 3 ahead. But 84, there wasn't much, for me, there wasn't much said about 83, but we just had to recruit better. We had to train harder. We had to get in the top 4. I remember talking to Sheedy, what do you reckon we got to do? I said, look, you've got to get in the top 4. That's the best place to start rather than 6th or 7th or 8th or 5th or 6th back then. So we worked really hard, but we still couldn't beat Hawthorn. And I think the second semi, they ended up beating us by 7 points with a kick into goal square with seconds to go, and we were devastated. You always got to give Kevin Sheedy credit for his positive outlook. So we went in there devastated, and he said, "Look, they're the best team. They are the best team, and we're this far from it. That's how close we are. This far from it." So you get to and you come out of that feeling really, really pumped. Yeah, we can do this. So you get to the 84 grand final, and we had a lot of the play. Our accuracy was terrible. 3/4 time, Sheeds comes into the huddle. He's talking about, I can't really remember what he said, but others say he was saying this, and the history says he said this. He said, "Look at them, they're tired, they're arguing. They were sitting on the ground in their all the warm gear, dressing gowns, etc." He had us standing up, and he said, "Look, they're all tired, they're worn out, we're still ready to go." And we had a lot of the play in the 3rd quarter. So then the last quarter, I get a hit out, goes to Daisy William, hits Leon Baker with a bounce. He does a blind turn, kicks a goal, and starts dancing. And Leon Baker was really cool and calm. And he was a great player. Recruited at 27, fantastic player. Would have been a household name if he had started at 19. And I thought, if he's getting excited, I'm getting excited. And the momentum, we took over. The momentum changed to us. And there was, I think Dipper hit Kevin Walsh with an elbow, slowed the game down at one stage, which would now be about 6 weeks. He got off the week after. It was amazing how it worked. But we just had a momentum. And I think always, people say, what are your memories? And I just remember when the siren went.
Yep.
And you just look for the nearest player. It happened to be Tim Watson, the centre. You just hug, and you there's a whole mixture of emotions that exultation, you've done it, joy, disbelief, relief, just a whole mix of emotions. So we actually aimed to do this, and we did it. So it was a great memories of that. And I think the next year we won back to back. I got an Norm Smith medal, which was fantastic. But I think people say, what's your greatest moment in footy? And I think that siren going at the end of the 84 game is probably the best memory I have. It's fantastic. Although the Norm Smith medal was pretty good.
Double dangles.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was just going to ask, Simon. Obviously, 1984, then he went back-to-back 85. Then the Norm Smith with 22 disposal, 14 marks, and 22 hitouts. You just discussed the feeling of the glory, the feeling of a premiership win. Were you a bit of a Steve Johnson, call me Norm at 3/4 time when you got up there? Or
in fact, I had a little stint. I think in the 3rd quarter, I had a little stint on the bench for rest. And so I could have much better stats had I left there.
It's a pretty decent game.
It is.
I think it's one of those games where it all goes right. I remember going for mark 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter, and I shouldn't have got it. It was out of reach, and I sort of leant in and stuck in my hands. I can remember saying to myself as I remember, "Geez, I'm having a good day. This is all right."
You just know when it's your day.
And it all came together, and so I mean, there's some very good players that day, so I'm quite happy to. I talk about being the only premiership, only ruckman to win a Norm Smith medal, and Greg Deere for Hawthorn, God rest his soul, a great player, great man's passed away last year. He got a Norm Smith medal, but he was a ruck at times. But that game, that game he was actually played on the half-forward line. Yeah. If anybody said he's a ruckman, he had 2 hit-outs for the day, because I checked it, and I said, if you're going to give a ruckman a Norm Smith medal for 2 hit-outs, you're wrong. So he was actually one of those blokes who could play a number of positions, and he had a great day that day for Hawthorn. And I was really disappointed. To a certain extent, it's great to say I'm the only ruckman who's won a Norm Smith medal. Look at me. But I was a bit disappointed that I thought Maxi Gawn might have got one 2 years ago, because he played a really good game.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see. I remember when Brisbane Lions won 3 in a row, and their ruckmen were really good in those games. And I thought if Maxi Gawn could win one, it would show you how important the ruckman still is in a game. And I think if you look at the grand finals, ruckmen still have a big influence. They might not have the best influence, but they still have a big influence on bringing players into the game. Even in the modern game, the way it's played, if you have a little bit more certainty to your hit-outs than they do, and your teammates can sort of pick you and read you a little bit better than the opposition, then you've got a chance. So I think I'm still hoping that there's another ruckman that can have a Norm Smith medal, because it's very boring when I sit there and at the Northwest Metal Ruckman's get-togethers. It's just really boring me sitting there reading the stats. So I'd like to have somebody else to talk about, talk to. It'd be good.
And on that, you said about the ruckman. What separates a good ruckman to an average ruckman, and how hard is it to learn the ruck craft?
Oh, look, I think it's there's lots of things to it. I think there's I've got to give Sam Newman a lot of credit and Sheedy a lot of credit. I just used to run at the ball and hope. Yeah. And then Sam Newman, hang on just one second. I'm talking about myself so much I'm getting excited. Sam Newman came as ruck coach, and I used to run and jump hard and hope. And he said, "No, look, if you come in an angle, you jump it early, you use your opposite hand, your right hand, I'm left-handed, right hand, right knee, you push the player off the line of the ball, you can use." I can remember doing that and going, my God, is that what it's all about? Because I played against, when Sam Newman was older and I was younger, I was more athletic, I was fitter, I could run more, I could jump higher, and he kept getting the ball. And I remember that lesson going, wow. So I think think about how you use your body. And there's sort of three types of ruckman. There's the tall one who can use his height, like a Justin Madden, who's 6'10". The Greg Deere I talked about, who was shorter and bustly and could push you out of the way. And then me as a leaper, or you get a combination of that. So you've got to be able to get your opponent's body off the line of the ball. So I always said you should have twice as many hit outs. You get one, they get one, you don't like, then you get one. Then you get one, they get one, you don't like it, you get. So you should have 2 to 1. That's what you aim for. You should be aiming. And modern game has changed a lot. But I think for the modern ruckman now, Jim Steins would have fitted into the modern game beautifully for Melbourne, because it's all about running and getting I shouldn't say the easy kick, but the shorter kick. I remember playing in a EJ Whitten game when I was in my 40s, and I can remember there was a space to run into a gap on the wing, and I'm the ruckman. I'm supposed to go back and create the wall. And I remember going, oh, look, I'll just run forward and get a cheap kick over there in the wing, which you don't, you sort of, no, I'm not supposed to do that. Now, that's what you do. You have to run over and get a possession so you can bring somebody else into the game. So being able to run around, get the ball, be able to make sure you use your body well as well. And, hard body, soft hands is always talked about. Being able to get a mark. And I think that I've always said to young ruckmen or young players, if you're just a ruckman, they'll change you off the bench. If you can go forward and kick a goal, 2 things will happen. You'll get more game time and they'll pay you more money. So it's a good thing to be able to
catch
run forward and get a goal. And I think that even though the way the game is played up and down the ground, though, if you can push forward at the right time, either in the ruck or rest in the forward line and get a goal, and I've seen more and more they're doing it. I mean, everybody said, oh, the game's changed, but there's a lot of it's the same as it used to be. The midfielders still getting the most votes. Maybe the goals are a bit hard to get, but if you can push forward and get a mark and kick a goal, you put real pressure on your ruckman, because he's supposed to be able to follow you and defend you as well. So it's a combination of those things: being good in the ruck, being good around the ground, being good up forward. And I've said to every young sports person, probably every young person who wants to achieve something, what's the extra bit you're doing? And I said, if you do what everybody else does, you'll get what everybody else gets. So what is it you're doing? I can't tell you what that is. For me, it was when I got there and I couldn't kick, so I had to do extra kicking practice. Then I was too light, so I had to do extra weight training to get bigger. When the game got a bit faster, I had to get the fitness had to be better. When the game got more skillful, my right-hand handball had to improve. And as I was getting old, I had to try and keep my fitness up so I could match it with the young blokes. So there's always something extra you had to do. But if you just do what everybody else does, you get what everybody else gets. Very deep and meaningful. There you go, gentlemen. Very serious, deep and meaningful. All right.
I've got a question for you. So how do you reckon you would go in the modern day game with your game style?
Well, mate, I'd be a slow halfback. I'd be a slow halfback flanker these days.
And the cheapies.
I used to walk into a footy huddle. I mean, I've shrunk. Oh man, I've shrunk a bit. I used to walk into the footy huddle and you could pick me out. I walk into the footy huddle there. I might not even be there. I was at Essendon during the season for a meeting, and I went past the gym, and the boys were in the gym, and I always have a chat to the ruckman, and I'm standing there, and I've got 3 blokes, 6'8" plus, and I'm standing there, oh, is this what it's like to be a Rover? Hit the ball. Hit the ball. They just get bigger. I mean, I had a great leap, and I probably would, remember playing some games centre back, played centre forward. I probably would be a forward ruckman rather than a ruckman forward, but also Cheese would have to be a bit faster, I tell you.
Don't sell yourself short there. I think you would have done just fine.
Yes. Now, as you just said before, what you choose to do and what you worked on. So you said your goal kicking and kicking in general. A couple of months ago, you might realize what I'm going to bring up here. You said working on handballs as well. What happened with the Lou handball? What happened there? Missing the whole board.
Well, seriously, if you're not paying me, I'm not doing real handballs. I mean, I was there to promote a play that I was producing, and I said, can I get some airtime? And I said, you can get some airtime if you do the handball.
Yeah.
You know how, like, when I've got grandkids now, and so the idea is, and with your kids is, you have a kick of the football with them.
Yeah.
When I finished footy, I said, I don't want to touch another football.
I've done this all my life.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? My brother Justin, he only played 332 games. He's only got 2 best and fairest, and boom, boom. He's got two premiership medals too. He had a great career, but I don't tell him that to his face, of course, because he played for Carlton. He says, his friends say to me, "Are you going to the football?" He goes, "What?" So, "Are you going to football? You're going to see Carlton?" And he goes, "Are they paying me?" And I go, "No, I'm not going." It's professional sport, so this concept of I'm going to keep practicing and I'm going to keep doing it is just foreign, I think. I always love when somebody says, and they're still doing it, and I understand why they're doing it, but someone says to me, "Oh, I'm still playing footy." I said, "How old are you?" 55. What? You're 60? You're still playing? Yeah, we're playing in veterans. We're playing in legends game. We play every second week, have a rest. And I said, "So you're at your age, you still can run around and get a football?" And they go, "Yeah." I said, "Well, obviously you didn't get a hard ball when you were playing younger. It still lasts now. You can still run around the ground." My body is, there's a term for it. So it's not as good as it used to be, put it that way. So, I said, what am I doing here? As long as I'm promoting the right thing, this is fine. But, the next time it'll have to be worth lots and lots of money, full stop. And I might even practice beforehand. There you go.
Well, you were compared to Tony Jones. That's how bad it was.
Now, I don't know who should be more insulted, him or me, but
definitely him. You at least did it on you at least hit the board on the right hand. He didn't hit it on both.
I was nearly, I hit the board with a kick, and I thought maybe I should just go back to kick.
Just barrel it through the 10.
The amount of muscle mass you lose when you get older, and the amount of muscle, all the players who finish league playing football and go somewhere else, it's amazing to see how the muscle definition, just the muscles, just like they lighten up. You just don't do the amount of weights. If you go and play, I've seen it, ex-footballers go and play somewhere else. The amount of weights you don't do that you used to do when you play, and then you watch some of the young players now in their first year, and look at them 3 years later, 3 pre-season later, you go, where do they come from? I remember being a youngster, and the great Collingwood Ruckman, Len Thompson. I played against some great players, Len Thompson, and they used to have this. The Truth was a magazine and have the Truth of Football Olympics before the game. You go down Olympic Park and they'd have all these different activities for the football. So you'd have the 200, the 400. We had a piggyback race where I had to carry a rover. And Gary Fitzpatrick only played a few games. He was the rover for that one. I think he was the lightest rover. And we won because the leaders fell over and we came second. So we won. We did it. We did one of those old ice cutting tricks. And and Len Thompson. I remember Len Thompson. So I would have been about 19, and he said to me, pointed at me, I said, "Where'd you get them from? You didn't have them last year." And it's that, I always say the compounded fitness, the compounded strength, this pre-season on that pre-season on that pre-season. And you look at some of the young Essendon players now who've been there, 4 or 5 years, they've got muscle they didn't know they could have 4 years ago. So and you look at, other players, and there's this, with league football, there's this ongoing balance of speed and strength. So if you get too heavy, you're not fast enough. If you're too fast, you're not heavy enough to take all the bashing. So you've got to keep working on the right balance. And I've seen that time and time again, how they keep trying to keep the right balance for the right players at the right time, so they can contend with the bumps and bashings, and also contend with the speed and the running up and down the ground.
That's why you play cricket, Simon.
Actually, nobody talks about my cricket career. I'll tell you about my cricket career.
Oh, here we go.
So these 3 facts are true, right?
Okay.
So I have bowled 5 for 12 off 7 overs. I had played cricket in India, and
wow.
I've been likened to Glenn McGrath.
Yes.
I like it.
I like
Now,
it.
those 3 facts are true. The trouble is, the 5 for 12 off 7 overs is F grade under 14s.
That's all right.
That's
Sitting
all
under
right.
that.
That's
Doesn't
right.
say
I've
that.
got, I've got 5 for 10 off 9 in G grade. So
Yeah.
Playing cricket in India is when we went on holiday and I rolled the arm over with some kids in the street because everybody plays cricket over there. That's the rule.
Counts.
take
All
it.
competitive.
Counts. It's probably effort.
And the third one being like the Glenn McGrath, I was, my wife and I were kids. All I went over there. Our brother-in-law was working, so I went for a visit and a tour. And we're at one of the tourist spots, and two locals were sort of looking and talking to each other and pointing. And I'm sort of going, well, they don't follow football. And one of them came over and said, excuse me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Australia. And he went, oh, you look like Glenn McGrath.
So next question.
Big tall white man in the middle of India. Of course I look like him. So there's my cricket career in a nutshell, all right? Those 3 things together sound magnificent, all right?
Oh, pigeon.
What are you doing this Saturday? Do you want to come down to South Belgrade and have a game?
I'll story again. Are you paying me? No, all right?
I can work in a deal, maybe a 6-pack and a couple of beers after the game.
Yeah, 6-pack. I know how cricket works, mate. It'll never stop at a 6-pack. I know how that works.
Worth a try, Connor.
Oh,
Worth a try.
I have to try and get some people down at South Belgrade.
That's right. The arm, I don't think the arm will work though. I mean, I'm very good with the ball, but you put something between me and the ball like a tennis racket, a golf stick, and a cricket bat, no, it doesn't work. You know, all this.
Now, you mentioned you've come against some really good players.
If you want to win a cricket, if you want to win a golf, just play me. You win, all right. And
I don't know. I'm terrible at golf. I reckon you'll win.
Well, have you gone this far? Because I a couple of years ago, I said to a group of friends who were playing golf, I said, look, no, I'm retiring from golf.
Oh.
I said, I'm retiring because I think it's an indictment on the game that they let me play the way I do. I think
Oh, believe me, there's worse people out on the course.
but I have gone back for a couple of games, and I think I think it's the old story. If you don't take it too seriously, actually play better. When you get very competitive about it,
Real nutty about it. Yeah, I've played with a few of them.
So, somebody asked me to play tennis the other week, and I made sure I was busy. I had something else, and I think I had to pair my socks or go through my sock drawer, or line up my CDs or something. I was really busy.
I always go with cleaning the fridge magnets.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, beautiful. Exactly. And now, what are your? Hang on. And now this is a two-way conversation. What is your football background? You like playing football? Did play football? Love football?
Yes, I
I
don't think I'll be playing this year, but I have. Yeah, I have played. I played in a premiership.
Right. Doesn't matter what level. If you've got a premiership, it's fantastic. You've got something to share with a group of blokes for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Connor?
I stopped playing when I was about, I reckon, 20. I always go with the I was looking like getting drafted, but I did my knee when I was 16. That's a complete lie. But no, I gave it up. It just got too much for me. It was the pre-season, like play cricket, then like halfway through cricket season you have to do a pre-season. I'm like, this is not me anymore. Yeah.
It's one of those things that, and I mean, people say, people ask me, I always say you should play in a team sport, whether it's cricket, football.
I agree. Yeah. Yes.
And people say to me that, oh, look, but my kid's not sporty. I go, well, okay. The band, the choir, the theatre group, the dance, whatever, about a group. I think the concept of sharing the outcome is really good.
You make some of your best friends as well.
Like
guys I played sport.
My serious head again, I read an article the other day was saying that I might have to get back on the footy of the cricket because it's saying that if you want to live longer, my job is to live forever. That's what I'm planning to do. So far, so good. I'm doing all right. So we, you have a better life being involved. Even in older years, you have a better life involved in a team sport. And so even as you get older, whether it's a higher level or not, to be involved in a team sport is very good for you. And after we've gone through all the tissue COVID for 3 years, that people are looking for ways to enhance their health and their mental health, and they're saying that that's one way to make sure you actually improve and can ward off a whole lot of diseases, and it makes you feel better and might even help with stopping dementia. So I might have to, think about it because the 3 best things about having dementia, don't you?
What's that?
You can hide your own ace rings. And you keep meeting new people.
Well, I'm telling you, Simon, that offer to come down and play at South Belgrade still stands. The boys will love you down there.
We'll see how we go. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Now,
Convincing.
Holty loves to talk about his footy
Oh,
capabilities.
I love it.
Do you have a spare 4 hours?
We'll swap stories.
I continue to play football. I've played 131 games.
Listen,
3-time leading goal kicker.
Oh.
beautiful. This is the
Most kicked in a game.
Most I've kicked in a game is 11-8.
Oh, magnificent! That's that's great. So, and this is the thing I always say to the past players. I say, how many games you play? Because my normal introduction is I played 378 games for Essendon, which is 300 great ones and 78 superb ones. Right? That's the way you do it. I say all that because past player, ex-player just make it up as you go along. And I always say to somebody, how many games you play? So, no, 125. I go, no, that's 100 great ones and 25 superb ones. That's what you got to do. You got to put yourself
up.
It's exactly
right. And it's interesting because most, my serious out again with football, I think players learn the game in their first 50. They understand the game in the second 50. If they play over 100, they actually know what they're doing in the big picture of the game, in the big picture of the football. But most players don't play 100 games. So most players actually don't know where they fit into the big picture of football. And so it's an interesting one. So, and I've only done it twice. I've been very cheeky, only twice. When somebody gets ahead of themselves, let's put it this way, and I say to them at the end of the season, how old are you? I said, I'm 19. Yeah, all right. You finished the season at 19. Yeah. How many games you played? I played 15 games. Oh, all right. Okay, really good. So when I finished the season at 19, I played 65 games and won a best and fairest, all right? Don't get ahead of yourself. It's a bit harsh, but yes, only 2 people have needed it. Everybody else is going to.
Well, if anyone needs it, it might be this place sitting over here.
It might be me.
You've got your own little thing called the Forward Union. Fill Simon in on that.
Yeah, I've got my own pub, the Forward Union, and I've created player respect. You know what that is, Simon?
Player respect.
Player respect. So we have umpire respect. We recently had AFL umpire Nick Foot on here, and I introduced him to player respect. So
he was not a fan of that.
He was not a fan of it. So there was an incident one time in a game, and I gave away a 50, and I wasn't standing. And the new mark rules these days in football, I wasn't standing on the mark properly, and the umpire didn't tell me. He belittled me to stand on the mark, and I look at him. I'm like, show some player respect. And he wasn't a fan of it. And then I gave away another 50. So it was 100. So we stuck by player respect.
Yeah. Oh, look, there you go. Look, I mean, it's different these days because we've gone from umpire appreciation day to umpire appreciation week to umpire appreciation year to umpire appreciation lifetime, which is fine. I think it's
wouldn't have a game without them.
Well, you're going to say just try having a game without them, and I think I've learned along the way. Look, it was really good in the old days because you could talk to them, and there used to be interplay, and some of them, some of them very funny, good sense of humour. But when you sort of played a couple hundred games and you've been around for 15 years, you've got a bit of credibility. We'd get young umpires, and so they bounce the ball, and I'd be saying, "Oh, fantastic bounce, really good. That's really good. Keep that up." And you'd see them, "Oh, thanks." And you'd say, great decision, Keith. That's a great decision. Really good. Yeah, you might. And look, you're running up the ground. Do this about 4 or 5 times. The confidence would go up. And about the 5th time they make a bad one, you say, that is the worst decision I've ever seen. You get right into it. Like, oh, you can't do that now. You can't even,
I bet you old Brian Taylor would have done it.
Can't even look sideways menacingly at anybody either.
Oh, yeah.
And look, I have a lot of respect for the umpires because it's such a hard gig. And if any other job, if you do, you get 90 out of 100, that's fantastic. But in football, you get 90 out of 100. What about the 2 mistakes you made?
Yes, exactly.
But what I got frustrated with last year, and I've seen it a couple of this, when someone's holding the ball, the umpires stand there and you get this motion. It's beautiful. When there's a mark, they show you it's a mark. When it's a push in the back, when blokes were getting the 50 metres for something on the mark, we didn't know what was happening. Was it abuse? Was it he didn't stand right? So you get not only you're frustrated with the rule, but you're frustrated because you don't know what the decision was made. If they could have every decision with emotion that matches the decision, then people might disagree with what the umpire said because everybody does all the time. But you'd at least see what the decision was. And I can remember going, well, what was that? I have no idea what's going on. Up until last year, you could tell what the decision was because the umpire would demonstrate to the crowd what it was. Last year, I didn't know what was going on. And that was a bigger frustration more than the rule itself, which I thought was a very strange rule. But
And it's replayed everywhere.
they're very good. Yeah, they're very good. I think the umpires, what they've got to get better at is I have no problems with the stand rule, but as soon as the player moves, then you call play on straight away because the player can pick play on probably quicker than the umpire can call it. So, and I know umpires get tired, but they've got to be, and they've got so much to do. But if they work on, as soon as that bloke moves sideways, the bloke on the mark can move. Because the whole idea is to stop those plays, stopping the player on. You know how players used to wander out in the middle of the field and keep on that angle to stop that inside play or the outside play. If you're back on the mark, they've got enough room, they can do that. So as soon as they move, you can move too. And then you've got player for player. Because if he runs off and you're here, all of a sudden he keeps going and you're one player short wherever the action's going to happen. So I think
they have changed the rule to that.
I think they did. I think but they've still got to be quicker at calling that because because the great thing we love is player on player wherever it is around the ground. And the trouble is that coaches are having tactics for player not on play. You know, we flood the back line, etc. So the more one-on-one plays we have, the more it's a great competition for a game.
Yeah. Oh, well said.
Written, spoken, authorised by Simon Madden. Okay, there we go.
Now, also with your forward union, you said, I'm sure Simon would be a big fan of this too. What's one of the key aspects that you allow in your forward pub? What do they have to be good at?
Goal kicking.
Well, totally.
Anything that's gone out of the game and not as a big factor now, and the skill has gotten worse, or
if you're going to be a forward,
I think there's the fitness people. I don't call them high performance people. They get ahead of themselves. They get ahead of their station.
Absolutely.
They're very, very important. They're very, very important. And I have great relationships with the fitness people I've had over the years, but they're not high performance. They don't take marks. They don't kick goals. And I remember being a ruck coach at Essendon for a little while, and Tom Bell Chambers, Pat Ryder was there, Tom Bell Chambers, and I had time to work with the ruckman, right? Now think about this. So I have to work with the ruckman. I'd like to get 15, 20 minutes, and then you go and look at the videotape and all this. And I won't name him because I haven't got his permission to name him, but our fitness bloke, I went over to do this centre bounces, and he said, Tom can have 9 jumps. I went, what? He said, 9 jumps because of his loading. He can only have 9 jumps. Now, this fitness bloke's 5'2" and had never been in the ruck. But his concept of high performance, was, it's this loading, and this loading. And there's different loadings.
Yeah.
If you want to be a good goal kicker, then you have to practice under pressure. And there's the fun, the fun we all do on the boundary line, kicking around corners, all that stuff. You've got to have that. That's the fun part. Then there's the regular work on your motion with it. And these days with a phone, you can stand behind someone in front of them on the mark and tape them and give them instant feedback to their style. And it's all about straightness, and we let them get away with murder, a lot of plays. And then the other one is practicing under pressure. And I always remember when I was the ruck coach all around the place because everybody'd say, Simon, we've got these 2 young ruckmen. Can you come and be a ruck coach for a year or 2? And I always, just at the end when they're kicking for goal, I'd just say, somebody get a mark and they're kicking for goal. I'd just jump in front of them and go, right, siren's gone. We're 5 points down. This one counts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 2. This one is the one that counts because that's what you've got to do in a game. It's got to be now. And all of a sudden you can see a player's demeanour change. Oh, hang on, I've got to do this under pressure. I did some ruck coaching at North Melbourne when Dennis Pagan was there, and he'd have blokes, you get the ball, in front of goal, everybody's shouting at you, and you have to kick the goal. Practicing under pressure and not just practicing are two different things. And I think I understand the loading, but if you want somebody really good goal kicker, you don't see a golfer go, I'm walking too far, so I won't go and hit the ball. I've seen golfers who had a bad round, and these are professional golfers. They've had bad with their 5-iron or bad with their approach shot. They finish the 18 holes. They go and have 50 shots off the tee to practice while it's still fresh in their mind. And I know that the game's got faster, but if remember, I always remember talking to a fitness guy, and another one he was saying, if we do this, we get a 2% increase. If we do this, we get a 3% increase. And I said, if you kick a point, it's 1 point.
Yeah.
Kick a goal, it's 6 points. That's a 600% increase in performance. Yes. Why do we work on that? Why do we work more on that? And always talk about, of course, defence is a big thing, but ask the frustrated crowds who go to Premier League soccer and Australian soccer and European Premier League, and it's a 0-0 draw. It's a great game. I said the game is not about
it's boring
draws. The game is about scoring goals.
Yes.
And so, yes, if you stop less goals than the others, or stop more goals, maybe, but if you kick more goals than the other team, normally you usually win. So why don't you increase the percentage of goals you kick and work on getting more goals, and that might be a way to win a game. I'm very simple. I'm a very simple man.
I like this man, Tricky.
Do you reckon that?
I have him on my side.
Do you reckon that will ever happen though? Like, or are we just too far gone with the high performance coach?
Well, no, I just think that it's all about balance. It's all about, and when this bloke said you can have 9 jumps, I said this is just going crazy. The other one is interchange, and I always remember watching blokes so interested in getting off the ground because they have to get off the ground that they've disengaged from the game and they're running off the ground with their back to the play. Whereas they just turn around and look, they get a free kick on the wing because someone's running out of play looking for someone, and they're not. So there's this balance of and I've seen players instead of running them off the ground. There's a 30-second ad. Why don't you stick them in the forward line for a couple of minutes? Yeah. They've 30-second rest. The ball doesn't come down. There's another 30-second rest. You don't have to interchange them off the bench as much.
My biggest pet hate is when they kick a goal and they have to go off.
Yeah,
keep them on. They're on. They're running. They've kicked a goal.
But I've seen the players before. They kick a goal and their emotions are up. So you keep them on the ground. The ball comes down. They kick another one.
And then got 4 goals.
Correctly.
They're on running hot.
Correct.
And so it's about. I understand the game's fast, and I can give me all these stats on why it's going up and down, and I totally understand that. But it's the balance of what's right for the game. I've seen some really good runners not get the ball. I've seen some really good runners not kick goals. I've seen some really fit blokes not make the game. So yes, the fitness and the running is really important. But if you don't get the ball, does it really matter? If you don't pick up a play, does it really matter? So it's a concept of getting the right balance of football and fitness and strength. As I said, the balance of strength and fitness over the course. Not that I've played much football, I wouldn't really know. So it's what would I know anyway? So anyway, written, spoken, authorised.
Oh, rubbish.
Written, spoken, authorised again.
This is official now, guys. This is official. Simon Madden, Vice President of the Ford Union. Welcome to Vice President. I like it. I love it.
Now, this is a 2-part question, and it's about Kevin Sheedy. First of all, what was it that made him such a good coach to be able to coach for that long and be that successful? And the second part is, what was your relationship like with Kevin Sheedy, and more in particular during that time when you were elected captain?
Oh, here we go. You've got enough time. I think Sheed's he's a fantastic coach, right? But he was a new coach when he started, and I was a new captain, and we didn't get along well. And I thought that he was. You look at his strengths. So he was just football first than anything else. And then I think after a time we realised was sort of it was family job and football, or family football job, whatever as it. And now, but you should have, football. Friends and family. If a person's happy with their friends and family, normally they're doing the right thing. The footy comes along well. But I think he was fanatical about his footy in a positive way. He really wanted to get. He wanted to get more than just play footy. He wanted to play successful footy. I think he developed very, very positive. We could get beaten by 20 goals and you'd still find. Look at that good player we found on the wing. So I think that was really important. He would scour the country for players. Was always looking for an edge. He changed the rules. The 50-metre rule came in because of him. If we got the ball in our forward line, a free kick, we go for a free kick. He said, throw the ball away, tackle the back, give 15 metres. Give 15 metres because we were able to set up and match up the players up the ground. And so they actually brought in the 15 metres because of it. He'd be saying you're kicking on an angle for a goal. He said, now stay inside on the line and walk around the inside of the line and make the angle better. He said at one stage, the rule about giving the ball back to the boundary umpire, we had blokes, he'd say, if you go over the boundary line, throw the ball away. So when the umpire goes to get it, we'll have enough time to set up and match up players.
Yeah. Yep.
And then at one stage, Shane Hurd, not James, but Shane Hurd had played an out period. He was a great player. I remember he ran over the bend, bit the ball up and threw it about 20 seats back in, 20 rows back in the crowd. Well, the AFL thought that was terrible. Oh my God, it's terrible show of football. So he's just he just wanted the best for the club and himself and the players, etc. So it was this fanaticism, but based also on positive outlook on what you could do. And then early on, we didn't get along. I mean, I think he had a narrow view of what a footballer should
Isn't
be.
there a story where he dropped you to the twos for being late or something like that?
What happened? I got dropped. I got dropped to the second, and I hadn't been in the second so long. And there's a whole thing about form, and there's a whole thing about how I can give you a whole dissertation on what you say to yourself is how your self belief and what you say to yourself is positive talk can really help. But I got dropped to seconds. I didn't even know what time the second started. I would always turn up to watch the second half of the seconds.
It's a tad earlier, Simon. They always start a tad earlier.
Anyway, the first week I played we played at Windy Hill and I was late, and I just lived around the corner. I was late, but nobody noticed because Windy Hill is really, he's got lots and lots of rooms. He's around here somewhere. The next week we played at Fitzroy. And I was late, and I walked in the Fitzroy change room, and there's one room, and everybody's sitting there waiting for me. Well, to be fair to the coach, Bernie Sheedy, I've never been upset with him. You could see he had to make his decision. So here's this player's been around forever, dropped the seconds, and he's late. And the rule for everybody is that if you were late to the game, you started on the bench.
Oh.
And so he had to make a decision, and he said, and he could see the other players going, "Oh, what you going to do?" And you could see him. He goes, "Simon, you're starting on the bench."
In the twos.
I went, "Well, that's whose fault's that? That's not his. That's the rule. That's the rule. His fault, it's mine." So as I ran out and I said to him, "Oh, don't leave me there for too long, Bernie." Anyway, but I imagine people coming to the ground to see the seconds, and they go, "Oh, Simon Madden started on the bench." You couldn't normally go sort of like that,
breaking the tag.
And so I had to live with that. And I can remember at the end of that season, my form was up and down, and Sheedy had sacked me as coach, sacked me as captain, and I always remember thinking to myself, well, okay, so now whose fault is it? You can blame everybody else, but I said, okay, there are the people of this club who have a lesser view of my ability than what I have. So what am I going to do about it? So I'd been captain. I played 150 games, 160, 70 games, something. I'd already won 2 best and fairest. And I had this real slump in my form. So I said, okay, I'm going to win the best and fairest next year. Now, that's a bit full on because you can get injured, etc. But what it meant in my own head, I was going to do everything to put myself in the form, in the position to be able to have a go at winning the best and fairest.
Yep.
So that was in 84, because it happened in 82. No, 82, sorry. So in 83, I won the best and fairest, and 84, I won the best and fairest in a premiership year. And what it taught me was that, and there's a whole lot of stuff I do in my work now with people about your attitude and how your brain works, that you can actually be in charge of your own career, and you can actually be in charge of your own life. But it's how do you listen to the other people, and what do you take in and what do you not take in? And you can make your own decisions, informed decisions, you can run your own life. And so I do that with a whole lot of, look up simonmadden.com.au. There's the ad. There's a free ad. simonmadden.com.au. I work with a whole lot of organisations about people improvement. And one of the things is that if a sports person gets up in the morning and looks in the mirror and goes, "I'm going to have a bad day," they're right. Because the way the brain works, you'll just find everything to match that. If you get up in the morning and say, "I'm going to have a really red hot car, I'm going to do all right," you're right as well, because you'll match everything in your brain to do that. And so that's the whole concept. There's science, not this, willy-nilly, oh, it's magic, and it's, it's actually there's science behind how the brain works and how you can actually, through positive images and positive thought, actually develop a better attitude towards the situation. So, because remember, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to what happens to you, which is the difference.
Always try and tell my workers that.
Oh, yeah.
Always try and give them the positive mindset. It's going to be okay.
You're positive. The other story. You're positive. I'm positive. Terrible football. I'm positive.
Now, I wasn't going to be able to go for the podcast without mentioning this story, but in 1986, you were approached with a 3-year contract to the Sydney Swans, which was rumored to be about 550,000, which today would be worth
Oh,
1.5
He
mil.
just knows, you can tell.
Take us through how that went down, and
Have you got
but how starstruck were you to be even offered that much money? Because back
Have
then,
you-
as I said, it worth about 1.5.
Have
Yeah.
you got, look, I'll tell you it's very quickly because there's a longer version which you won't have time for. I'd finished 85 second year Premiership, two best and first year before Norm Smith medal that year, and I was out of contract.
Mm-hmm.
Great Dr. Edelston was chasing players. Peter Jess was my manager. He said, why don't you just talk to him, because he's chasing players. So I met with him at Peter Jess's office in Fletcher Street, Essendon. The doctor had already spoken to half a dozen players. I was in one office. The door was open. Merv Nagley, who, God rest his soul, passed on, great player. He was in the other office. He'd come out of the office and said, what do you reckon, Merv? He said, see you in Sydney, straight out the door, right? So anyway, the good doctor comes in, and he, I remember him saying, oh, nice place. And I remember saying, oh, look, the carpet needs a bit of work to paint. He said, no, Sydney, great place to play football. I said, that's a good sell. That's a good sell. And then he rubbed his hands together and said, oh, this is great. All these footballers I'm talking to, I feel like a little boy in a toy store with all these teddy bears to choose from. And you sort of go, don't call me a teddy bear. You sort of get a little bit. And so anyway, the negotiations go on. And I was a teacher back then. I haven't been a teacher because I was a teacher back then. And he said, well, Jesse goes, well, what are you offering? Because we talked money. He said, okay. And Jesse goes, look, he's won the North Smith medal. He's two. He said, you don't have to sell him to me. I want him. And Jesse goes, well, what are you offering? He goes, what about $100,000 upfront cash to sign today and $450,000 over 3 years? So it was 550. This is still in the 85. It's Caulfield Cup Day in 1985 after the season, and you sort of bum falls out of your pants. You go, what's going on here? But because it would have made me the highest paid player apparently, and if you did it now, just add a naught to it, would have been it would have been $1 million sign on fee and $1.5 million a year for 3 years. So and so I went, wow, and I said, there's a few problems. He said, what do you mean there's a few problems? There's a few issues. So look, I've just bought a new house. We've got a new family member, and I've got a new job. And the good doctor said, what do you do for a job? And I said, I'm a teacher. And this is a quote. Now, he said he never said it, but Jess and I were only two other people in the room. We agree, he said lots of things are other people, so he might not remember. He said, so what do you do for a job? I said, I'm a teacher. He said, I'll get you a job. I'll buy you a school. I said, now we're talking.
Now you're talking my language.
So negotiations. And he wanted to sign that weekend. So he wanted all the players to train. Chasing Glenn Hawker, Merv Nagel, a couple others. But he wanted us to train on Monday night, so the press would say he'd broken up the 85 Premiership side because he wanted Sheeds to go. And I remember saying, it never happens that quickly. It never happens that quickly. So I said, no, not yet. And Jesse signed it. He said, look, I'll sign it for you. And if you agree, we'll go. If you disagree, say, you didn't authorise me to sign it. So it was there to take. Yeah. And Jesse said, oh, I forgot to offer in a car. Put in a car. He won't notice. Put in a car as well. Things like this. And I didn't. And the second offer was, they made a second offer, which was, you think about this is where it got silly, 10 years, 5 years to play and 5 years to coach, and $100,000 a year for 10 years. And that was, but I remember the club rang me the next, because you had to inform the club had to inform the player. Sorry, the players manager had to inform the club if an offer had been made. And so Barry Capiano rang me, who was a general manager of footy then. He rang me on the Sunday morning, and I said, good morning, Barry. He said, good morning, Simon. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm ringing about? I said, yes, I do. He said, are the figures right? His voice broke. He said, are the figures right? And I said, yes, they are. And he said, we can't afford that. And I just said, show me you want me. Show me you want me. Now I'm rich, so I worked that really well. There you go.
Beautiful.
I didn't get. There's swings and roundabouts, but I got very good pay, and there was the chance that we might have had another premiership. It didn't work out that way, but everything sort of went together that it was better to stay than go.
So obviously you played a lot of games for Essendon. What was it like playing State of Origin? Obviously you were the captain of the Victorian team in 89 to 91.
Yeah, it was just. I think you speak to Bobby Skilton. Sorry, triple Brownlow medalist Bobby Skilton. That's his whole name. He only played one final. He talks about playing, state footy and how great it was. And when I played state footy, it was just great. It was, the highlights. Robbie Flower played one final and for Melbourne and lost, and played all this state footy. And what you did, you played with the best player, and it was a great pat on the back for you because you were being picked, so your form must have been good. You're playing with the likes of. I think about this one state game. I'll walk out in the centre. I think it was in West Australia. I've got Greg Williams, Brownlow medalist, Jared Healy, Brownlow medalist, and Flea Waitman, best over at Richmond in the centre, waiting for me. I go, well, I've got no excuses there. I better play right because I can't. And so it was. I mean, I played, I played with the great Gary Ablett Senior. I played with Lee Matthews. I played with Gary Dempsey. I played with Glenn Thompson. You just go on and on and on. And Robbie Flower. It just goes on and on. Jared Hears, I said, Greg Williams, and it was just fantastic to play with those players. And the level of football was amazing, and the level of training. Like you could train, and you weren't going to drop the ball because nobody else dropped the ball, and the ball would just flit around like it was on a string. It was just. And I was lucky enough. I think I played 17. I played. Originally, I played with it was Victoria versus Western Australia. So it wasn't state of origin. Then that was one game, and then it became state of origin. But it was just fantastic, and it was just great footy. And so playing finals and playing state of origin footy, state footy was just the pinnacle of great footy. And you really do it. Really do. I know some people thought, state footy, but I just loved it. If I had a chance to play it, I'd go, I'll put my hand up. No worries at all. It was great. It's fantastic.
All the highlights you watch on YouTube and stuff, and when they show it on Fox Footy and all that, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that it needs to come back.
Well, it's really hard. I mean, I know they had started last year, started the year before. They had a sort of a quasi state.
Yeah.
And I know the players who played in it thought it was fantastic. They just loved the whole concept. The trouble is now, because it's a national league now. So, and there's been a couple of instances where players have got injured. When you're running around, you're an asset, and when you're injured, you're a liability. That's reality of football.
Yep.
So to put players in a position where they have to play extra games and you're not in charge of them, clubs are worried about. Because you get a chance of getting injured, so that I see that as the only hindrance. But I was a better player for playing state footy. I've always said better player for doing it. So I'd be, if I was a young player now and know what I know from back then, I'd be saying I want to play state of origin footy every time. It's fantastic.
Now you mentioned you played with some great players. Who's the best player you've come up against or seen?
Hang on, there's two questions because the first question, who's the best player you ever saw?
Yep.
And my answer to that is when I got up in the morning, looked in the mirror, there he was. No, look, I mean, I played with, in my time, I never split Terry Deniher and Tim Watson as great leaders and great players. Paul van der Haar, Roger Merritt, our state side, our premiership sides were just magnificent. And even the lesser known players were just in great form. And it was just the way they all came together. So I just have great, and as I said, beating the Hawthorn sides, we did have great regard for those players. Best, it's very hard to say the best player ever saw, apart from yourself, I said, the players that played with in state footy, you just go off, reel them off. But I think I'd probably say the best player I played with or against was Gary Ablett Senior.
Oh, yes.
Just the head.
Are you taking senior over junior if you had to choose?
I would. Yeah, I would.
Yes, good decision.
And look, I'm probably being hard on Junior because he's a great player, but I always said that I'd wait until after both careers. And Gary Junior is just a great player, and I have great admiration for him. The way he just, and the way from Geelong to Gold Coast and back again, the way he handled himself is fantastic. The way he played. I remember seeing him take, because he wasn't an aerial player, he was a ground player, fantastic player, but I saw him take a mark one day and went, gee, that's just like his old man. But I saw his old man do things that no other player did.
Mm.
Yep.
And I can remember playing next to him in a state game and watching him play, going, how can he do that? How can he dance on someone's head for 5 seconds before he takes the mark and waves at the audience and says hello to mum and dad? Things like that. It was just... So Lee Matthews, Jared Healy, Greg Williams, Flea Waitman, you just keep going. I said the ruckman I played against, and I played against Michaels in Western Australia. Never came to Victoria. He's just a great player. You look at just go through all these. I'd have to go through the teams and just start ticking them off again because all it's just fantastic. So, but I sort of just some of the things Gary Senior did that I didn't see anybody else do that. He just could do things that nobody else could. So I pick it. But Wayne Carey's a great player. You keep going through them all. And like people forget, my brother Justin, 332 games. At one stage, he was 6'10" and 125 kilos. One of the biggest blokes to play in the ruck, and he could still run around half fast. He was doing all right. He was doing pretty good. So, and Len Thompson, Gary Davis, Mick Nolan, and galloping gasometer. I can remember one time out leaping him by about a foot, and as he went up, one hand hit my hand out of the way, and the other hand hit the ball. I remember hitting him down and going, "Take note of that one lesson." Magnificent, things you learnt off the other players is fantastic.
So obviously you were named in the ruck in Essendon's team of the century. What was that like when you got named?
Expected.
That's
look, it's just.
That's a great answer.
That's great answer. Really good.
Look, you got to, I said, football, you make it up as you go along. No, look, all those honours are great. They're very nice and very pleased to have them. But does it make you a better or worse football if you picked in one of those sides or not? It doesn't matter anymore. It's all finished. It's all gone. It's all gone. So, and look, I think people have talked about, they talk about Polly Farmer, John Nichols, and they put my name in there. And I said, look, if you want to put my name in there, wow, thank you very much. And Sam Newman says, it's an interesting one, Sam, because he taught me. He says he would say I'm the best technically. So he doesn't say I'm the best, which he said, but he taught me. So of course he's going to say that because he taught me.
Old Fossil would find a way into it.
He's got to pump yourself up. But look, I'm just very pleased to. I'm very pleased to have the career I have. It's a long time. I'm very pleased that you guys, young guys, are still interested in it because it's good for the ego. And
80s and 90s football is the best football. Even though I'm only 20 years old, it's the best football. And I like the thing too is that there's some great players who never had enough footage shown of them because there wasn't telly. But people say to me, "I saw you the other night." I go, "What? Tuesday night?"